What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and the iPhone XR is the oldest iPhone that Apple currently sells, and while it got bashed to oblivion when it was first announced, it has stood the test of time and turned out to be one of the best iPhones I have ever owned. But just because I loved it does not necessarily mean it's for everybody. So let's talk about the iPhone XR and if it's worth buying in 2021, and if you have one right now, should you sell it and upgrade soon? Let's start out by rewinding back to 2018 when the iPhone XR was first announced. So this was introduced alongside the iPhone XS and XS Max and was the second year in a row where Apple introduced 3 new iPhones in the fall. This was a cheaper alternative to those flagship phones, and due to that cheaper price tag came a lower resolution display, and that's what ended up causing a lot of controversy and really just threw a lot of people off, especially the technical people who look into the resolution, because on this phone we have a 6.1 inch display here with a 1792 by 828 resolution. So that of course is less than 1080p, and due to that, so many people and so many publications were just kind of astounded by the fact that Apple would put such a quote bad display in a phone and still try to sell it for $750. So everybody just bashed this phone, just destroyed this phone when it was first announced, and then it went on to become the best-selling smartphone in the entire world in 2019, not just the US, the entire world. The iPhone XR also sold great in 2020, not quite as great as the iPhone 11, but still sold quite well. And by the time Christmas 2020 rolled around, the iPhone XR was the second most activated phone on Christmas Day 2020, outselling every other iPhone except for the iPhone 11, which also has the exact same display as the iPhone XR, by the way. Same resolution, same everything. So this whole thing about the display just being so bad and not 1080p clearly is not a popular opinion, but rather just the opinion of the super technical. And all along, I've defended the iPhone XR ever since it was unveiled, and even in my initial unboxing of the iPhone XR, my initial reviews, the 6.1 inch display is simply good. It's not great since it's not OLED, but it's pretty much as good as an LCD display gets. And I mentioned that in all of my initial videos on the iPhone XR. I was really praising the fact that the display looks so good for being an LCD display, because at the time you could almost confuse it for an OLED panel because it just looks so good as far as the colors go. Now, obviously, if you put it side by side, you could tell a clear difference from OLED, because OLED is going to be a lot better in terms of the contrast ratio and the deep blacks and things like that. But at the time, this display, and even still to this day in 2021, the display looks great. Apple calls this the Liquid Retina display, and it has, True Tone, it has the P3 wide color gamut, and it has a 1400:1 contrast ratio. It also has a peak brightness of 625 nits, which is the same peak brightness of the iPhone 11 and even the iPhone 12. And so watching videos, playing games, browsing the web, it's all enjoyable. I mean, nobody's gonna complain about this display unless you just, have or came from a phone with an OLED display, because OLED displays, of course, are always going to have a better picture due to those deep blacks and that higher contrast ratio. But unless you had that previously, or you just have it side by side, you're really not going to complain at all about the display on the iPhone XR. Another popular complaint with the iPhone XR, both when it was first announced and even now today, is just the overall design. So we have the bigger bezels on the front right here around the screen. It is also a little bit on the chunkier side, but that of course is because we have a nice big battery inside, which I will talk about here in a moment. So it is a little bit thicker, and we do have those bezels, but the thing is the iPhone 11 has the same design. So we have those same bezels, same thickness, same weight, and you're really not going to notice it that much when you have it in a case like I normally do, and like I would recommend as well. Now the front and back are both made of glass, and the edges of course are made of aluminum. So we have the aluminum frame right here, and it feels solid in the hands, but of course it won't feel quite as premium and as solid as something like the XS, XS Max, or the 11 and 12 Pro models, since they have that stainless steel frame. But again, my phones always stay in cases, so I really never pay attention to the build quality when it's in the case and when I just use it on a daily basis. Now, as for the durability, the screen actually scratches pretty easily on the iPhone XR. As you can see here, I do have quite a few scratches on the screen and also on the back as well from just really normal everyday usage. So I would definitely suggest using a screen protector and a case with your iPhone XR if you are not doing so already. We also have an IP67 dust and water resistance rating, so it can be submerged in up to 1 meter of water for 30 minutes. It's not quite as resistant as the phones to come after it, like the iPhone 11 here, for example. These are the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 12 are both IP68 rated, but still IP67 should be resistant enough for most everybody unless you like scuba dive with your iPhone or something like that. One of the other big reasons so many people fell in love with the iPhone XR is because it comes in 6 different colors. So it comes in blue, white, black, yellow, coral, and product red. So it's a fun phone on the outside, but a beast on the inside, which is probably one of my top favorite things about the iPhone XR. It's not just gimmicky with all the colors like the iPhone 5C was back in the day. You know, it backs it up on the inside as well with great performance, great cameras, and things like that. Now, speaking of cameras, the front-facing camera is going to be an area where the iPhone XR, I wouldn't say struggles, but it's just not near as good as the newer iPhones, because at the time it didn't struggle. You know, it's an improvement over previous generations, but you know, since then, since 2018, we've seen much better front-facing cameras. And the reason is because we have that 7-megapixel camera up front compared to the 12-megapixel lens on the 11 and 12. So just a year later, we got the 12-megapixel front-facing camera lens, which made a massive difference. Not to mention the chips inside just made the post-processing so much better on selfies as well. So I will say that if you do take selfies a lot, or if you take front-facing video, because you can only record in up to 1080p on the front-facing video here versus 4K on something like the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 12. So if you take a lot of selfies or record a lot of front-facing video, I think it may be worth it to just go ahead and pay the extra money and get the iPhone 11, because there's going to be a pretty big difference in quality from the XR to something like the 11 or the 12 or future iPhones. Now, when it comes to the rear-facing camera, it's a different story. And the rear-facing camera is one of the biggest reasons I fell in love with the iPhone XR from day one. So on the back, we have a single 12-megapixel f1.8 lens, but as we've learned with time, it's not just about what's on the outside, but also what's on the inside with that post-image processing. And in 2018, Apple's A12 Bionic chip introduced the magic of Smart HDR. So Smart HDR made and still makes capturing shadow details and bright highlights just so much better. The details are just so much better when we have Smart HDR implemented in these iPhones. So shots weren't nearly as blown out as they had been in previous iPhones. The colors popped much more, and just the overall quality for both photos and video was amazing and still is amazing on the iPhone XR. Now, since we do only have that single lens, there are some drawbacks. So it does look clean. I actually like the look of just having one lens here. It's just very simple, very minimal. I actually like that look a lot. But we do have drawbacks. So one of the biggest drawbacks is going to be zoom. So without a telephoto lens like we get on the flagship phones, the iPhone XR uses digital zoom up to 5x, and the results aren't great. And that's because it relies on software alone to crop into the shot versus a telephoto lens that can just zoom in natively and return much higher quality results. You also don't get the 2x button like you get on those flagship phones, that you can just simply tap on that 2x and zoom in easily. And that's something I actually use very frequently when shooting photos or video. And the other big drawback with the iPhone XR and that single lens is going to be with portrait mode. So you can only take portrait shots of people. You cannot take portrait shots of objects or dogs or anything like that, like you can with all other iPhones that were released in 2018 and after. But of course, if you don't zoom in a lot, or if you don't use portrait mode for anything except for people anyways, then these won't be major cons for you. But for most people, myself included, those are going to be two pretty big drawbacks. Now, compared to the iPhone 11 and 12, there's not a massive difference in photo or video quality. Like, yes, there will be slightly better photos and videos thanks to Deep Fusion, a more advanced version of Smart HDR, a new generation of Smart HDR, and of course the dual camera setup. But the differences won't be worth the extra money for most people. So the biggest difference is going to be in low light and also at night, since the newer iPhones have night mode, unlike the iPhone XR. Now, there are applications where you can get night mode on the XR, but it's just not built in natively, and it's not going to be as good as it is on something like the iPhone 11, for example. Now, you also get HDR video recording on something like the iPhone 12, and that is noticeably better than even the iPhone 11. But again, you pay a lot more for something like the iPhone 12, and we'll break down the value of things like that video and just what you should buy near the end of this video. But really, when it comes to photo and video overall, the camera on the iPhone XR is still surprisingly solid here in 2021. And if you did a blind camera test, with the iPhone XR compared to the newer iPhones and just solid sunlight, I bet it would be hard for you to choose the best looking shot. Again, unless it was in lower light, then you'd see the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 12 shine, but just regular daylight photos, it'd be pretty hard to tell a big difference in the iPhone XR versus the 11 and the 12. Now, when it comes to performance, this is another area where the iPhone XR shines. So inside, we have the A12 Bionic chip, like I mentioned earlier, which can tackle pretty much any task that you throw at it with ease. And this is the same chip that was used in the iPhone XS and XS Max, along with the 2020 iPad 8th generation. So it's a very powerful chip. We also have 3 gigabytes of RAM inside, which is great for keeping apps open for long periods of time in the background. And I still use this phone, multiple times a week here in 2021. I have ever since it was released back in 2018, consistently every week. And it's a test phone for me, so I test like beta software on it and things like that. And it performs nearly just as well as even like my iPhone 12, which is insane and a real testament to how good this phone still is in terms of performance. So opening applications, playing games, exporting videos, multitasking, it's all just really solid on the iPhone XR. And I never had a single complaint about the performance of this phone since day one. And I've not heard anybody that has a XR ever complain about the performance as well. I've also done multiple speed tests here on the channel comparing the iPhone XR to other iPhones and even Samsung phones, and I'll leave those linked down in the description below if you want to see some interesting speed tests with the iPhone XR. And speaking of tests, another test that the iPhone XR has participated in multiple times here on the channel is in my massive battery drain comparison video, where I compare numerous iPhones against each other to test the battery life. And Apple claims the iPhone XR will get you 16 hours of video playback or 65 hours of audio playback, both of which are longer than the XS and XS Max, by the way. But in my testing, I test more than just one single task. And as you can see from the video I did a few months ago, in late 2020, at the end of 2020, the iPhone XR also had 95% battery capacity, but it still lasted almost 7 hours in this test and finished exactly an hour under the iPhone 11 and closer to an hour and a half under the iPhone 12. So battery life is not going to be quite as good as the newer iPhones, but that's expected with bigger batteries and more optimization and things like that. But the iPhone XR battery should still last you pretty much all day, if not all day. Now, with all of that being said, let's answer the big question and really the point of this video. Should you still buy the iPhone XR in 2021? And if you have one right now, should you keep it or should you upgrade to the iPhone 12 or the 2021 iPhone? So first off, I think that you should absolutely consider the iPhone XR in 2021, but not from Apple, not new from Apple. So Apple is currently selling it brand new for $499, but the problem with that is the iPhone 11 is just $100 more at $599 now. And I think the extra $100 is worth it there. So if you were just buying new, if you only want to buy new and you would never buy a used or refurbished phone, then I say go for the iPhone 11 for just $100 more. You get the additional camera, a lot of different features, night mode and better battery, things like that. So I think it's worth it for the $100 there. But when we go somewhere like eBay or Facebook Marketplace and look for a mint condition iPhone XR, you will see them anywhere between $300 to $400, depending on the storage size. So say you get one for $350 on eBay, that's a $250 difference from a new iPhone 11 and a great buy in 2021. And even if you compare used XR to used iPhone 11, there's still a pretty big difference in price there because iPhone 11s are still selling really well on eBay right now, really high on eBay right now. And if you go up to 128 gigabytes on eBay, which is what I would suggest for everyone, by the way, not just on eBay, but anywhere, 128 is the bare minimum I would suggest for the storage. Those are closer to $375 to $400 on eBay in mint condition, which once again is a great buy. Just make sure the battery capacity is at like 90 to 95% or better. But even if it's not, you can always buy a new battery and get it, running just like new there. So, and if you guys need any tips on buying from eBay or Facebook Marketplace, I did make a whole video on that, and that is linked down in the description below. Now, if you currently have an iPhone XR, should you upgrade now or hold on to it for a little while? And to that, I would say that you should hold on to it until at least the end of 2021. So the iPhone 13 or the iPhone 12s, whatever it ends up being named, will likely be a good upgrade for the iPhone XR, if you don't consider price. But when the new iPhone gets announced and gets released, we're probably going to see a drop in the price of the iPhone 12, and then all of a sudden that's going to become the best value buy. So that would probably be a good time to trade in or sell your iPhone XR and go for the iPhone 12. So I would definitely hold on to the iPhone XR until at least the new iPhones get released here in 2021. And even if you wanted to hold on to the iPhone XR for longer, if you just want to keep this until pretty much it dies, until, you know, it stops working, you can comfortably do so. I mean, it's still going to be fast and getting software updates for, I mean, at least another 3 years if I had to guess. So the iPhone XR will definitely last at least another 3 years in my opinion. So if you wanted to hold on to it for the long run, you could also do that. And I don't think you'll regret that, and you will save yourself quite a bit of money as well. But yeah, guys, there you have it. That is the iPhone XR in 2021. One of my favorite phones of all time. Definitely up there in my top 3 favorite iPhones of all time, especially just due to the fact that it was the first like budget phone released by Apple. And I don't know, just always holds a very special spot in my heart. But what do you guys think about the iPhone XR? Is it as special to you? Is it just me? Let me know your thoughts about the iPhone XR down in those comments below. And of course, if you guys enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, make sure you guys subscribe because I will be doing more videos on the iPhone XR later this year. And of course, in 2022 as well, which seems like forever away right now. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.